Welcome back to Radiant Change. I'm Kristen Lasanti, and I train transformational leaders like you. In our last episode, we talked about the essential but often underestimated role culture plays in a system's ability to produce results. Today, I'm going to draw you a map showing you how that works and how working at the level of culture changes what's possible in your organization. We start with a simple triangle. Up at the top are your results. Now, results can be positive or they can be negative. Positive results might look like achieving your goals. Negative results would be maybe declining employee engagement, underperformance, lost revenue. As we have discussed, we focus most of our attention at the level of results because they're what's visible. They're what we can see. They're what we can measure. So we tend to assume that if we are clear enough on the results that we want, we should be able to get them, right? For example, you might set a higher sales target and expect people to achieve it. But how? By doing more of what they've always done? That might get you short-term results. It'll probably get you an awful lot of resistance from the system. But the thing is, those results that you get in the short term are not sustainable. And they aren't sustainable because you aren't attending to what is actually producing those results. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Results are produced by behavioral patterns in your ecosystem, events happening over and over and over again. Patterns are harder to see than results. There will be some patterns that you can point out right now, others that you will recognize when they are pointed out to you, and still others that are completely hidden from your view. For example, are your teams competing instead of collaborating? Are leaders not delegating effectively and getting stuck in the weeds? Is conflict being avoided? All of these are patterns. Every pattern in your system is perpetuated by structures that connect the parts and people in your system to one another. Okay? So your structures are going to be both operational and relational. For example, the first structure that might come to mind is a simple org chart, spelling out who's in what role and how those roles together comprise the hierarchy of your organization. So operationally speaking, we might ask ourselves, is everyone clear on their responsibilities to the organization, to the vision, to the culture? And are incentives designed accordingly? Relationally, we might wonder, where do people in this system have autonomy? And where are they expected to follow established standards or processes? You can see why some of the most profound work that we do in cultivating healthy, high-performing ecosystems is around intentionally designing these structures, which often show up as boundaries. At the core of the system, all the way down, though, are paradigms that quietly perpetuate a system's status quo. These paradigms may be unspoken but shared assumptions about how things have to be. They may be pervasive mindsets that support or inhibit your success. They could be your organizational values, maybe, assuming that those are actually what's driving how you make business decisions. And let's face it, that should never be assumed. But these paradigms are what design the structures in your organization. And those structures are what perpetuate the patterns, and the patterns are what produce the results. So if you aren't getting the results from your system that you want, you can try to train the team in new ways of working together and address some of those patterns. That can work, it can have an impact. Or you can reorg the business and redefine roles, kind of getting down to the level of structures. And you might have some success there. But if what you need is a profound transformation, a true turnaround, for example, or a major strategic shift, it's worth doing a bit of digging to get down to the level of your paradigms. This is where you create the conditions for your healthy, high-performing ecosystem. To see how this works in real-world contexts, let's take a look at two quick case studies that illustrate this map in action. First, we look back at what used to be the insular, know-it-all culture at Microsoft. which by 2014 had the organization stuck in a defensive posture against its competitors all across the tech industry. Internally, complacency and infighting, these are patterns, were fueled by structures like onerous processes and overblown bureaucracy. When Satya Nadella took over as CEO that year, he made several transformational leadership choices. First, he framed his desired results in the form of a truly purposeful vision, empowering every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. Huge context for the organization to operate within and work toward together. He also introduced a core paradigm shift with growth mindset. So he was challenging his organization to shift from the know-it-all paradigm to a learn-it-all paradigm, because he saw that shift as essential to achieving his vision. As Microsoft's teams were invited to break with tradition, to learn new skills, they started to bring forward new ideas and pursue external partnerships, which the old competitive paradigm had strictly forbidden. And the results? Microsoft's valuation has surged from $300 billion to $3 trillion in the past 10 years. And it is now remarkably poised as a leader in the rapidly emerging space of generative AI. So a huge success story in terms of culture driving results in Microsoft. Our second case study is more of a cautionary tale, at least at the time of this recording. It's still unfolding. In 2024 alone, Boeing has lost nearly $8 billion and its stock price has dropped 39% this year alone. Its disastrous decline ostensibly started with doors flying off planes and planes falling from the sky. But we know these tragic outcomes are the result of patterns in Boeing's system. An FAA inspection of the 737 MAX plane revealed that it failed 33 of 89 safety audits. There's widespread documentation of concerned employees being ignored or silenced. When problems became public, some leader would be fired as if the system's toxicity was that one person's responsibility. These patterns were produced by structures and incentives that prioritized maximizing shareholder value and rewarded speed of production over safety. It wasn't always like this, though. Industry experts have traced it all back to a single fundamental paradigm shift that happened in 1997. Boeing's innovative culture merged with the more competitive and bureaucratic McDonnell Douglas, whose leadership was focused on control and cost cutting. Now, nearly 3 decades later, it's clear which culture won, and they are paying dearly for it. So let's take a moment to consider, with that kind of paradigm in place, how could the results really have been any different? This is why we have to talk about results being the inevitable outcomes of a system's culture. Ironically, being results-focused can actually work against you if you aren't attending to the ecosystem that produces them. Boeing is now attempting to turn itself around, and its ability to do so will rely heavily on whether or not it opens itself up to another profound paradigm shift. So now that you know how cultures work, you might be wondering, what needs to shift in your ecosystem? In the next episode, I'm going to make it real simple with the only culture change you need.